Jesus.
Where to start? You know, Trump's now a convicted felon. Trump. Would you vote for a convicted felon, Joe?
Sure, why not? I've been voting for convicted felons my whole life, I think, in one way or another.
You mean all politicians are corrupt kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, but... Yeah, no, but this is supposed to be different.
Official.
This is a convicted felon.
It's got a rubber stamp gone through the justice system. So that makes it for reals.
Politicians are criminals as a class, but, you know, the judge is on their side, so they don't get convicted.
Right.
Usually.
Right. And do politicians ever engage in infighting with each other?
Oh, yeah.
And so a judge that might be on the side of one group of politicians might prosecute a politician on the other side.
Yeah, but only in banana
unfairly.
republics. Only in the US it's understood you don't do that because we're all on the same side, except they've just broken the fourth wall.
There isn't a banana republic.
The first time ever, US president.
Yeah. America's a watermelon republic.
Yeah.
A large watermelon republic. I don't know what would you call it? They call it banana republics because that was back in the day of CIA ops in South America and countries like Guatemala that produced a lot of bananas, and they call it banana
United
republic.
Fruit.
Yeah, so countries that the US had kind of either had propped up a Quisling regime. It's funny they call them, Americans use the term banana republic to refer to kind of like,
to look down on.
Well, to phony democracies, right? Fake corrupt democracies, when in fact
it was doing fine until.
Well, no, the democracies that the so-called democracies, they were fake democracies, but they were fake democracies because they were installed by the CIA.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm saying
and
is
when they unbananaed themselves and became,
then they bought
legit, then they got cooed.
Yeah, cooed. So, but it's just funny that they use that term to disparaging against other countries who don't have such a great democracy as America has, who have a corrupt democracy, when the term originated with corrupt democracies installed by America. It's not really fair to use that term in that way when you're responsible for them. So yeah, banana. I don't know what food defines. What does America produce anymore? Anyway, a lot of. What would be the defining product that...
corn.
It's a corn democracy. No, it's I don't know, yeah.
Corn and beef.
Fried chicken and watermelon democracy.
This is obviously old news, we know, because, we didn't do a show last week, but it was kind of last week's news. We're not going to hang on it, but it's interesting that it hasn't really been... You think this would be a glorious moment for the other side in a political fight to capitalize on it and keep it in the news and go mental with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so weak sauce that even here, look, so this is the Guardian of the UK, ultra-liberal, obviously with Biden against Trump. They're commenting on the fact of a billboard that was put up. Oh, jeez, what's going on here? Hang on a second. Wrong thing. This happened last time as well. Guardian. There, sent it. They're just in passing mentioning a billboard that was put up about boasting, sponsored, paid for by the DNC, boasting about how Trump is, quote, a convicted white-collar crook. If you scroll down, I think it's midway in the article. It's weak sauce. It's just the usual political text and whatnot. There it is there. It was posted in Las Vegas, Nevada. Trump was a disaster for Nevada's economy. Now he's back. A convicted white-collar crook. Here, let's highlight that part. Unfit to serve. But it's interesting that in this commentary on it, even The Guardian, in the paragraph before they show it, look at that. Democrats have been unsure how far to go in hammering home the verdict to voters in this year's election campaign. Some fear it could fuel the narrative that the trial was politically motivated and backfire by generating sympathy for the presumptive Republican nominee.
Could fuel a narrative?
It's so obvious that even the other side is like, should we use this?
Well, they're saying, but the way the Guardian's reporting it, obviously in a yellow journalism kind of way, some fear it could fuel a narrative that the trial was politically motivated, but the trial was clearly politically motivated. I mean, it's just, there's no... This latest trial is in an unbroken line of trials and inquiries and investigations against Trump that started with, Russiagate, right? So you're talking 8 years ago, pretty much, when it started. 8 years. This is just an unbroken line of 8 years of political... I mean, how can anybody with a brain, let's say, a functioning brain, not like a walnut, but like a functioning brain, how can anybody not...
Or a watermelon.
Or a watermelon for brain. How can anybody not see that over the past 8 years, Trump was hounded by the media and with all sorts of, spurious mud slung at him, that even most people would recognize that a lot of accusations were just, he's like Orange Man bad, and I hate him because of the... people making up all sorts of things about him, and at the same time, they were then pursuing him like over what they could legally in the courts. How can you not connect those two? In the sense, how can you not see that any legal action against Trump was by definition politically motivated, when before he was even president, the Washington establishment types, Hillary Clinton, DNC, and all those people, and the FBI, and the what do you call it, the judiciary. Most people in the Washington establishment, right, career people who have been there for a long time and who run America, basically, they hated him right from the get-go, without any evidence. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? How can you say that wouldn't influence? How can you say that wouldn't influence any legal action that followed after you have made like if I make my personal feelings about someone known that I hate the person, I don't have any legal. I don't have any reason to denounce him as a criminal legally. I don't think I don't have any evidence he's done anything wrong. But I hate him for what he thinks and the way he thinks about things. And then quickly on the heels of that, I go and pursue a bunch of different legal cases against him, all of which have, up until today, shown to be really spurious and scraping the bottom of the barrel type thing, really digging and trying to find anything at all. I mean, that's the definition of a political witch hunt.
I know.
So how can... even as a bystander...
That's why you would think one of them being successful to get convicted criminal in the headlines, you think they'd be like, finally, we can just go with this now. We can forget that Russiagate was flipped over and actually shown to be baseless and stuff like that. Well, now we have something solid, in quotes, to hang our hats on. But you can see even there, they're being cagey, like, do we want to use this? It could backfire. I know they only see narratives. They don't. They live in a post-truth world where there's no God, there's no truth. So they just see competing narratives. But even there, they have doubt in the strength of their convictions, their own convictions and beliefs about their own stories about Trump.
Well, it's not that they're not expressing doubt there, at least not in The Guardian. They're expressing the fact that politicians like Democrats don't want to pursue the he's a white-collar criminal thing because that might make it seem like this is political. Like, as in, it's a political witch hunt. We're trying to get this guy simply because he's the opposition. It's dirty tricks. It devolves into that we're using dirty tricks to smear him and to defame him and to malign him in any way we can because he's the opposition. Not for any good reason, but simply because we want to be in power and we don't want him in power. That's the definition of a political witch hunt, right? But on the other hand, you could see how people would say, well, hang on a minute, it's not just about that. Like, we're looking at Trump's morality here, and that's been brought up by Trump from the very beginning, that morally, he's questionable morally, right? And that's been pushed repeatedly from the get-go, right? He's a bad man, he's not a good person, right? That's the most you'd get out of the average American who doesn't like Trump. He's not a good man. Or, ergo, Orange Man bad, right? Yeah. That's been, was there from the very beginning, right? People, the trollers basically summed it up right from the get-go. Orange Man. So what you're saying is Orange Man bad, basically. Okay, I don't understand your opinion. Orange Man bad, but behind that is morally. I think morally, my moral taste buds go off. They start sounding whenever. Well, I start salivating whenever I see Trump and just look at him and look at the way he talks and what he says and how he says it, all that kind of stuff. He's a bad person. I just get a feel that he's a bad person. But that, in a sense, is a legitimate argument, that because morality should be part of politics in a certain sense, like or in terms of who you elect or don't elect. I mean, you should be allowed to evaluate a person based on their moral traits or their moral character, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But it can't be just that he's brash or he says things. You know what I mean? It can't just be the way he comes across. It always is about the results of a person's actions, what they actually do. And if there is any actual substance in them being morally,
Untouchable.
no, morally, if there's any evidence that they're morally beyond the pale type thing, that they have very poor morals, then sure, that's a reason not to vote for them, that they shouldn't be in elected office. But there isn't anything. It depends what your standards are,
Well,
but there's very little.
34 felony counts, Joe. 34. That's a lot.
Yeah, but what's the morality there?
34. That's
34
a lot
morality
that's a lot of
counts.
strikes. That's a lot of strikes against your morality, yeah.
But they weren't morality counts. They were but for financial payments. Is that so? It gets very difficult, But like I said, you have to actually look at it on.
How many people do you think out there looked at it?
But they should, I mean, you can't be shouting about it on Twitter and screaming and talking to the newspapers and writing long articles in the Guardian about it if you haven't actually looked at it objectively. So, what evidence is there that Trump is morally, like I said, beyond the pale, that he's a very immoral person, that he's a very bad person? I mean, to me, there doesn't seem to be any evidence, where it matters, because you're talking about the president of the global hegemon here, right? And what he would be able to do and what he has done. If you look at his track record on that score, so in that sense, basically, just personally, when I look at a president or a leader of a country, especially a powerful country, I'm not really interested as much in what could be said about their past. Everybody has a past, what they've done in the past, whether he slept with a porn star or whether he didn't, whether he paid her any money. They're incidental details in a way compared to how he would use the power that he has or has had or may have as president globally. Because obviously most people in America, most men in America, most people in America have the power to sleep with a prostitute. And probably many of them have, many have done, but not many of them have the ability to launch a nuclear war, or not many of them have the ability to launch a conventional war. Not many of them have the power to of the power of life or death over thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in a war of some description. So it's in that respect that for me it makes sense to evaluate someone like the president of America or the leader of a country, of a powerful country. So that's what I do. And on that score, Trump's track record is, and that's for me, that's the only one that doesn't make any sense. And on that score, he's pretty good compared to the competition, compared to Biden, Obama, going back, all the ones we don't like, basically, Bush, going back 25 years.
Clinton.
Even back then, yeah, as well. And Hillary and all the different people in the State Department, the people that Obama and Biden populated their State Department with, the coup plotters and the empire of chaos people, So yeah, it's just weird. It doesn't seem, and that's why people dig into it and try and find a different explanation. 'Cause it doesn't seem, I think anybody who does look at this can't really understand why there's so much hatred and vitriol towards Trump from a certain group of people, a certain number of people, when you look at it from that perspective, which seems to be the only, the most rational perspective to look at it from, right? I mean, if I care about who's the president of America, it's about the power that he has to wield in the world, not what he's done in his life per se. Sometimes those two go together, sometimes they don't. But the bottom line is, the most important question is, what has he done in the world? What is his attitude towards war, for example, and chaos? And what is his attitude towards America? What is his attitude towards, towards America and towards, I don't want to say make America great again, but his attitude towards the country is, does he want to keep money in the country? Does he want jobs for Americans, or does he want to export jobs? Does he want to send money overseas? And does he want to bomb other countries overseas? Does he want to create chaos around the world to the greatest extent possible? He doesn't seem to have done that. That hasn't been his agenda, for the most part. And that's unlike, like I said, Biden and Obama and Bush before him. So, before and after him. So, that's why I don't understand it. It doesn't take a lot of thinking power to actually just go through that process. So that's why I think a lot of people some people try and dig into it a bit more deeply and figure out why do people hate Trump so much. I can't, what else is going on? What explains this vitriol, That's where you get into those, like I mentioned, taste buds, moral taste buds, and people just maybe not being able to think very clearly, being reactive rather than thoughtful about things, and not knowing a lot, not paying attention. You get into a deeper analysis of human psychology.
Most people are gullible, and they're being directed by people
in the media
who do know what they're doing. Well, then you get into the question of those people who do know what they're doing, trying to stop Trump from being elected again. Why do they not want him to be president for a second time so badly? They're willing to do all this, and that's the question.
They want war.
Because they want war.
They want to maintain American hegemony in the world in the way that it has been.
You don't think Trump wanted that too?
No, they want to maintain American hegemony in the way that it has been maintained for the past 80, 100 years. The system that's been quote unquote working for the past 100 years. They want to maintain it that way, and they see Trump coming along and wanting to change things up and do things differently, and he has a different vision of how to do it, and his vision includes much less money overseas, much more money staying in America, much more jobs in America, and basically, conservatism with a traditional conservatism, or which, flirts with kind of isolationism, or, being America first, right? First and foremost, and they don't see it that way. They see it as America's manifest destiny to rule the world. It has been ruling the world, and it's been doing that by spreading its influence and control all around the world. They just want to see a reflection of themselves all around the world to the greatest extent possible. They want every government to be in their pockets. They want all the resources that way. They want wealth and money and power and control, and they want to own the world. These people, and they've been brought up with that. You know what I mean? America owns the world, so we should keep owning the world, and we should own more of it. There's some places we haven't got yet. Let's keep going. And Trump's like, this is just about it. I don't know. That's what I mean. It comes down to like a fundamental thing within a person in terms of their blink about a situation, or their nature, or their essence in terms of how they see the world and themselves in the world, And it seems Trump has more of a, like we've talked about this a lot before, where he's an outsider, he's a businessman, he has came in with a very different perspective than the average career politician who's been in Congress or the Senate for some of them for decades, or were brought up in political families. Trump wasn't brought up in political family. He was a newbie to politics, and that whole episode has been very interesting, to see that the deep state, the Washington deep state, the people who run America, really, really didn't like a businessman being in the White House. Honest to God, but not necessarily honest, but an actual businessman, in the sense, because, there's not a lot of business that's honest these days, but especially big business. But anyway, he was a businessman. He wanted to run the country like a business. And he just didn't understand what was going on. When he got to grips with it after a few months or in office, he understood what was going on. He's like, this is ridiculous. Or he knew beforehand. He got a feel for it beforehand. This whole thing is ridiculous. It's crazy. We're wasting so much money. Of course they are. Look at the American debt. That's been ramping up over and over again, and the loss of jobs and all that kind of stuff. I mean, at the same time, the American economy seems to be doing well, and at least nominally, right? It's hard to get a read on is anybody suffering in America yet? Are people losing their jobs? Are people finding it harder to make ends meet? Don't know. So there's an argument there to say, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? We've been running the world for 100 years this way, so why would you want to break it? You say that it's not good for America economically. Well, where's your evidence? Doesn't everybody still have 2 cars? 2 big cars?
No.
No.
No, not anymore. No. That's gone. Trump wanted to actually bring that back. And that's where it gets weird. You think a businessman, he's the right wing's candidate. In fact, his opponents consider him the far right wing candidate. Him having blue collar workers' interests in mind, that's obviously why he got elected, why he pulled in a lot of Democrat votes at the ordinary person's level. But at the ideological level, those who could see themselves as the representatives of blue collar workers, like, no, this is no. Why? You know, it's super odd. It's almost like they couldn't even. Well, there've been a couple of instances when Biden first came in where specific things they had been adamantly against, they in fact did their own versions of. Mm-hmm. But what was key here was that Trump's name wasn't associated with it.
That they're the ones doing it.
It was in fact a Democrat plan. Biden's name was tied to it. And so they went ahead and implemented his ideas anyway after railing against them for 4 years.
Well, of course, you got to do that, right? To keep him out, right?
So the personality was key. It wasn't even the things he wanted to, quote, shake up and to do business a different way. They actually went, oh, that is sound. But he can't be on it.
Yeah.
That's weird. I mean, that's like you say, it comes down to something
Partisan.
unseen and unspoken. We don't want this personality associated with the things that he has good ideas about for the country.
Because where it would lead, like, you know, I mean, they probably know a lot of the things that he wanted to do, or he wants to do, still wants to do, like the border, for example. You know, they know that that's a major issue for most Americans. Would say, listen, no, most people in any country faced with large scale illegal, unregulated immigration. Most people in any country would say that's not a good idea. Like we've seen it in Ireland, you know, 75% of the population in Ireland are against it. And most people in every other country, past a certain point of immigration, they say it's a bad idea, stop it. So they know that everybody in America pretty much doesn't want the country completely flooded with illegal immigrants. But they want the illegal immigrants. Right, they have their own agenda for illegal immigrants. They want the country to be, I don't know what. There's lots of different theories. Dilution of the native population, they're more easily controlled. Bring in new people.
Votes to keep Trump out.
Votes to keep Trump out. To vote for the party, but maybe and in Europe for manufacturing, you know, for kind of jobs that the local population doesn't want to do. You know, more menial jobs or construction jobs, whatever. You need You don't have enough workers. Bring in illegal immigrants. So they want to do that for one reason or another. The establishment politicians or the establishment system in any country in America or in Europe, let's say, most of them want immigration for various different reasons, but they know the people don't want it. You know, the people don't want that much immigration, so they just bullshit people. They want to be able to bullshit people. But when Trump brings it up and says, "Listen," and highlights the fact that there's too many immigrants coming in, or it becomes apparent that that's the case, then they'll start to say, oh yes, we're going to do something about the immigrants. And they'll talk it up, like you're saying. They agree, they supposedly agreed with Trump after denouncing him as a racist for not wanting immigrants. Then they say, oh yeah, we're going to do something about immigration, but then they don't.
Yeah. It's you mentioned Ireland as a comparison. I'm more familiar with exactly the situation there. It's probably the same in the US. So there's an election. There's local elections right now, but it's a prelude to a general national election sometime between now and early next year in Ireland. And after all the mass protests on the streets in entire towns up and down the country against directed mass migration, which the government says is a conspiracy theory and isn't happening, they're beginning to dangle through the media new, stricter control measures at the borders for people coming in. It's so cynical. But it has, there's two facets to it. One is obviously they're dangling this to draw the votes. They want the votes for the upcoming election. Two, they're never going to do it. But what they do is they expose that their awareness that this is an issue with most people.
Of course they know.
So how can we take the energy, but not to actually implement it, just to trick you into getting your votes. You know, it's
Yeah, but that's always been the case, right? Promises, election promises, campaign promises, and then nothing happens afterwards. It's like, it's just bizarre that people. I don't know how many people know that it's been around for so long, but people still want to have trust in the system because
Yeah.
it's the only system we got. What are we going to do if we don't have the system? Well, maybe you should try and find out. You know, maybe you should just, you know. I'm not an anarchist or anything like that, but I'm just, you know, wondering at what point does it get so bad where people do actually just realize that, you know, there's nothing to be salvaged from the system. You know, there's no redeeming qualities anymore. You know, it has got to the point where it's so entrenched, it's so corrupt, it's just so overflowing with lies and manipulations of the population that you just go, oh, point at where people wake up to that and just go, you know what, fuck the whole thing. You know, it's wrecked. We don't care about you people anymore, and just walk away. You know, just not participate anymore. I don't know. It has to. I don't know. It has to get worse. I suppose there has to be more hardcore evidence that really is the case. People hold on to hope that, oh well, it's just a few bad apples, or if we can just get rid of this group, then we'll get a better group in, and blah blah blah. And they don't realize that the system has become systemically polluted by corruption, you know, quite a long time ago, and there's no salvaging it, you know. Anyway, yeah, 34 counts. It's funny, people. Yeah, that's a phrase, that's a term you heard. Oh, I'm convicted on 34 counts. 34 counts were 11 checks, 11 invoices, or 10 invoices, 11 checks, 10 invoices, and 11 or 12 vouchers.
Vouchers.
Yeah, so there are basically 34 different
meals.
34, yeah, something like that. Meals at Mar-a-Lago or something. I don't know.
So it wasn't genocide, gross corruption.
No, it's 34 counts were 34 means of payment. 34 means of payment that he used to pay his lawyer, that the Cohen guy.
Cohen.
And there were 11 checks. 11. He paid him back with 11 checks. 11. I don't know how he paid him, but he got 11 more invoices from him, and then 12 or something vouchers. Anyway, and that was how he paid back the 130. Was it 130,000? Something like that. 130,000. That the lawyer paid Stormy Daniels allegedly.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
He supposedly, I mean, the fact that he paid her suggests, well, I mean, I leave open the possibility that he didn't have any relationship with her, but that she had something on him, some picture, he made some kind of dalliance or something. Who knows? I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. But that he felt in some way that he had to, that he should pay her this
trying
money.
to make her go away, because this is ahead of the election in 2016.
2016, yes. So he doesn't want any bad press, and he knows it's going to be used. So he just pays her off, and it's a non-disclosure agreement effectively that she signed with him, and part of it was a payment of 130,000 for her silence, like as in don't take this to the newspapers and get your money that way. I'll give you money, you know. And it could have even been like her claim that she had, and she may have had some evidence that she had some kind of an illicit affair or meeting or whatever, rendezvous with Trump, and she was going to write a book, or she was going to go to newspapers, and they would pay her handsomely for the story, because of course they would. If it was about Trump, right, in an election year, they'd go crazy for it, right, and she could make a lot of money. He said, listen, if it's money you're interested in, I'll give you the money. How much do you need? To not just don't basically air our dirty laundry, yours and mine, ever, ideally, but certainly not in an election year. Don't do that. So if the only reason you would do that would be for money, which is probably the case, then I'll give you the money. And she was like, okay, give me the money. And then so there wouldn't be an obvious direct payment in case that could be used. He does it through his lawyer. Wasn't
there something about the specific where he broke a law? Because none of that sounds. That's like
campaign finance.
Yeah, that the money used was there was misuse of campaign funds from his run in 2016. What was the?
Well, that's again, it's just kind of made up in a certain sense. Like for example, someone like Trump who has a lot of his own money. and can finance his own campaign, of course. He's totally allowed to finance his own campaign, but then he raises funds as well. And you're meant to maybe separate those out or something like that. But I don't know if maybe he didn't separate, maybe it's hard to separate those out, but you'd have to have a very clear accounting which money is actual donations from, donors from my campaign, and which money is my own money and which I'm using, whatever. Maybe he wasn't transparent enough about that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If he spent a lot more of his own money than he did in campaign donations in 2016, So the idea was that, well, you paid this money to her, and we can assume that it came from campaign donations, and you're not allowed to use campaign donations to try and cover up, to prevent information coming out about you or something like that, to kind of like, it's okay if you do it with your own money, because that's just a private affair. But if you do it with campaign funds, that makes it a public concern. And you're not allowed to use your campaign funds in a way that would hide information that might benefit or not benefit you in the election. Some bullshit like that. It is complete bullshit. Like, the whole case is a joke. Like, and the judge himself was a Clintonite, like a hardcore Democrat, and his I think his daughter was actively working with. It was Clinton, might have been Clinton anyway. Both of them were, hardcore anti-Trumpers and pro-Democrats, which, and they tried it in New York, of course, which is where you're going to get that kind of a judge. So yeah, it was clearly, the whole thing should have just been laughed out of court. And if it's not laughed out of court, which it obviously wasn't, it definitely should have been laughed at, for anybody with any sense, laughed out of the court of public opinion. And I think for the most part it was. At least, obviously, there's people who are already had drawn the lines there. People who are going to go, yes, I knew it, Trump's a convicted felon. He's as bad as I always thought he was, orange man bad. And then other people who are like, this is just more witch hunt against Trump because they don't want him in power, because these people hate America. The establishment politicians who are trying to get Trump, they hate America, they hate we, the American people. They want to destroy America, and of course, to destroy America, they want to destroy Trump. So, there's not much more to it than that, And like I said, it's just one more in a long line of stupid, obviously spurious political witch hunts against Trump even before, since 2016, before he even, as soon as he announced his candidacy for the president in 2016. So you're talking 8 full years to now. It's crazy how fast it's gone, but that's been 8 full years. And they haven't stopped in all that time. I mean, there's been a bit of a lull since Biden got in, but then but they kept it going. They knew, as soon as they knew he was going to run again, boom, let's get these court cases lined up. And if he wasn't running again, you wouldn't hear anything about these court cases. And
in Biden's...
there wouldn't be any court cases.
Yeah.
And yet Biden's salacious stuff, Biden, the fact that the laptop has, wow, shock horror, the laptop was real. They're still talking about, the laptop was real.
Yeah.
COVID was, overblown. Oh, wow. Who are these people who are like, wow, that's amazing. I never knew that. And, that's shocking to me. The laptop obviously was real.
The president's son is a crackhead.
This president is a crackhead and possibly a paedophile, and Biden is possibly likely a paedophile. Hunter Biden's daughter, testimony in her diary is basically about him taking showers.
Oh, that's real too. Yeah,
showers.
That came out
so
recently.
Biden taking showers, although it was known again several years ago because it was on the laptop and the diary, but apparently that all had to be brushed under the rug. That, allegations that are much more substantial and much more serious,
especially on the moral question you're talking about.
Like serious moral issues, that would definitely make you question the eligibility of the person to be in any office, in any public office. Much more serious than anything alleged against Trump, or made to go away, or dismissed. So obviously this election isn't about who's the most, who's morally the most fit to be president. It seems to be the opposite. It seems to be the most immoral candidate should be is being forced on people, or is being backed by the establishment, by the system, by the deep state, by the media for the most part. They want the most immoral candidate in power, and maybe that's why they don't like Trump, because he's not immoral enough.
Yeah.
And strangely enough, he's
They
presented.
know he's not one of them.
Yeah, strangely enough, he's been presented as completely immoral.
Yeah.
When in fact,
Because they know that that's what people with their other moral system expect.
yeah, well, yeah, but
Which they don't agree with at all. They think it's insane, but they use it against them.
yeah. So the person who's the least, the most moral, or the least immoral, is accused of being the most immoral. Yeah, I suppose that's the way you go about it in a fucked up system full of crooks and.
The election is 5 months away today, actually.
Cool.
You've made some predictions over the last year. Where are you currently at?
Where am I at? Where's my crystal ball? Where's my Palantir? I need to back.
Stroke the unicorn.
Stroke Mohammed, the diversity unicorn's hat. No, I should get a crystal ball actually. Have it on the table here, and I
Oh, you missed it, Joe.
Yeah, I can do some scrying, spontaneous scrying. When you ask me questions like that, I don't know. Trump. There's a good chance Trump could be bumped off.
On the sly.
Yeah,
Heart attack.
yeah. I mean, it was, what was 1985 Church Committee?
75.
75 Church Committee. You can go and look. I mean, it's just stuff I go. I just, if people don't know this, I go, why don't you know about it? And what's your problem? Like, you know, for me saying Trump might be bumped off, and you said heart attack, and people go, what do you mean heart attack? Bumped off, heart attack. Those two things don't go together. Somebody doesn't get heart attacked; they have a heart attack, right? No, they can be a heart attack because.
Well, things have changed. To be suicided is fairly common.
Yeah.
In the lingo.
And one way you can be
among younger people.
yeah, but a heart attack isn't suicide, right? There's more.
No, but suicide did.
I know, but there's more. That's what I mean. There's more ways to be bumped off than suicided.
Right.
You know, suicide is just one way.
Plane crash, car accident.
Well, like I said, heart attack. No, those would be suicided in a certain sense, at least technically. Well, no, okay. Car crash, your fault. Plane crash, your fault.
Assisted dying, they call it.
Yeah. But those are things that, yeah. Anyway, Church Committee 1975 guy holds up, I can't remember his name, one of the members of Congress, I think, or Senator, Senate Committee, wasn't it?
Probably after him, Frank Church.
Yeah, Frank Church, right?
Senator Church.
That's right. Maybe it was him holding it up. A heart attack gun. Or a poison. Was it a heart attack? I think they said it was heart attack. Maybe.
It was fire, a poison dart that wouldn't leave a trace. It was so small it would dissolve or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was 1975. What's that? That's almost 50 years ago.
Much better tech.
So 50 years ago they
use,
could this microwave and stuff like that.
Beaming.
Yeah, certain frequencies, certain to disrupt your heart, give you a heart attack. And you have that's the best way. You wonder why they wouldn't use that all the time, you know what I mean? Rather than trying to, I suppose planes are, maybe it's more entertaining for them or something like that, or like car crashes or shooting yourself twice in the head, that kind of thing. You wonder why they go to those kind of more crass levels of it, you know what I mean? Or more complicated levels if they have a little dissolvable dart that you don't even notice when it hits you. It can just be like, you can be in a crowd and just shot in the butt or something like that, and then it dissolves and that's it, and you have a heart attack a few hours later or half an hour later or something. Maybe it's not sure though in a certain sense. We don't know the details about it because they didn't go into the details necessarily, but it's maybe not 100% sure, you know, maybe they want to be sure about these kind of things, you know. But like you said, that was back in 75, 50 years ago, so since then I'm sure they've probably perfected down to the point where they can be pretty sure you're gonna be gone. In whatever way they choose, you know. So yeah, in terms of predictions, definitely a possibility. But I think these people would weigh up the effects of that, you know. These are people who aren't just doing it for immediate kind of like, we hate Trump, let's get rid of him, and then let's think about what happens afterwards. No, they're thinking about it
Yeah,
in
it
broader
has to be
terms.
part of a broader package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because the effect of, I mean, you want to do it very, very anonymously.
Timing
let's
is
say.
important to them.
Yeah, but you want to do it very anonymously. If you're going to off Trump, you need to do it very,
There can be no,
very carefully. It would
and
have to
ideally
be squeaky clean.
I mean, with JFK, it seemed to be so well prepared that there were 5 or 6 layers of decoys off in different directions that took decades. Well, some researchers were mavericks. They figured it out in the space of years, but they never got attention until decades later
Mm-hmm.
when other corroborating research. It wasn't until the mid-90s that the Mossad connection was fully laid out, with thanks to all the other research on CIA, mafia, and Cuba connection, blah, 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 and the Soviet. The fact that Oswald was sheep-dipped to be in the Soviet Union,
Right.
blah, 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 and then sheep-dipped to be in Mexico with a
Mhm.
decoy who was literally someone who looked like him. I mean,
Mhm.
that's...
That
you
level
see the
of-
layers of preparation that went into that.
Mhm.
It's deep. So it'll probably be similar-ish with Trump. Although these days, they're also shittier. We'll see. There's a whole mix of things. They're not all ubiquitous and not all...
So, yeah.
They're also lazier.
Yeah.
They're also much more...
And they don't care as
They
much
don't
anymore.
care.
Cavalier about it.
We control people's reactions, so yeah, it'll get out on the internet. We'll just bleach it off the internet.
Yeah.
We'll just remove all iterations. Program AI function to algorithm. There.
Mm.
No one's talking about it anymore.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's arrogance there, a cavalier attitude and an arrogance that they can contain and control. They have locked down, and maybe they're right. We shall see. But so either bumped off in some way or another, that's, looks like it's a natural death or natural event, or rig the election, but this time in where there's really egregious, clear evidence that are very damning evidence that it was rigged in one way or another. Which, I mean, if they do that, maybe it's arrogance again, but that might kick off some serious. We've been waiting for proper kind of rioting in America. We've been waiting for the American Civil War. Right? They've already made a movie about it.
Mm. Have you watched it?
No, they've already made a movie about Civil
I think
War.
I want to. Alex Garland.
The Hollywood has already anticipated, and that's maybe a sign. Who knows? But or maybe that's meant to let off steam, because people can experience Civil War without actually having one.
Vicariously.
Yeah, without having one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah, that was satisfying. Now we can all go back home and not have our Civil War. But yeah, it's strange that that there hasn't been more civil unrest. Not about Black Lives Matter, not manipulated bullshit stuff like that, but rather, larger body of people, a larger group of people are, on one side of the line, like conservatives or even Democrats, but probably mostly conservatives because they're the ones who've been being attacked most. That there hasn't been some kind of large scale protests. I mean, the Frenchies and other European countries will be out in the streets and protest over far less, in large numbers. Like, you're talking about millions of people on a given day. And translate that to America, you're talking about, you'd have to see 10 million people in major cities across America and not happy. Not just waving pride flags and stuff or waving Black Lives Matter flags, but like not happy about the issues that really matter, i.e. about the political system.
Mm.
Not about some bullshit stuff that was injected to try and divide, like the Black Lives Matter thing or the, pro or anti-abortion or gay rights, whatever like that. Something where awakened or angry people of whatever creed, who have had enough of the system, because maybe I expect too much. Maybe it has to have. Maybe people needs to get a lot worse. Maybe life in America isn't so bad anymore, or isn't so bad yet, to produce that kind of thing. But I don't know. It's weird. They talk so much about democracy and freedom and all this kind of stuff, and when, like, the biggest examples of, or the most egregious examples of the destruction of freedom and democracy in America, freedom and democracy in the world or in America, Do you know what I mean? Because of the contract, because of how much they claim they have it, and how much they value it, and the extent to which it's being destroyed in front of their faces. You know,
Yeah.
doesn't happen though. Don't know why. Too big a country, maybe. Too desperate. There isn't a real sense of
Well, at least
we the people anymore. You know, there can't.
well,
There is in
at least-
small
at
European
least
countries.
there's- At least there's I don't know what the polls are, but I think more than half of Americans, including Democrats now, not a majority of them, but they help flip it to over half. Just don't believe the result of the last election.
Oh yeah.
I don't think if you polled in France, I don't think you get a close to half who doubt that Macron was re-elected. So
Yeah.
Americans have that over the Frenchies, for example. The Frenchies might get out and burn half of Paris down because they don't have enough to feed their family to the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
Good. But the Americans will go, that was rigged.
Yeah,
And they won't come close to threatening to burn down
They
DC.
don't do anything about it.
But
That's what I'm saying.
but it becomes a talking point for the next 4 years.
Yeah, that's
They talk
'cause
about it.
that's
It's in the national discourse.
that's
There
'cause
isn't
the-
that in France. There isn't the
That's because there
discussion
isn't the
about-
evidence.
Yeah, but come on.
No, but there isn't the evidence.
Macron,
in France.
after the Yellow Vest Rebellion, got re-elected. Come
Yeah,
on. They should,
that's-
where is it? There's no French mass going, qu'est-ce qui se passe là?
No, but I don't.
Most of them just go, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, they would say that's it, but who knows? I don't know.
Obviously doesn't add up. Yellow Vest Rebellion, worst riot since at least 1968,
Yeah, but that's
if not the
different.
1920s in France.
But that's
and he
different
gets
from
re-elected.
Well, that's different from the evidence. That's not evidence. There's no evidence of election rigging in that fact. There is evidence. Was evidence of election rigging in 2016. Repeated more than enough. I mean, if that happened in France, you would have mass riots in the streets. You know, if you had that kind of obvious tampering or very suspicious tampering with ballots and all that kind of stuff, the mules, ballot dumping and all that kind of stuff. If that happened in France,
And
you would-
stopping the count.
No,
and
yeah, you would have
extending it for 5
yeah,
days.
and then stopping the count, and then Biden jumping up. You know,
Yeah. All right.
that would set people off in France for sure. Yeah.
Speaking
But
of
not-
France and American democracy, we just passed D-Day, the 80th anniversary.
Mm.
Do people even know what the D stands for? They probably think it stands for Democracy Day.
Yeah.
France, Britain,
The
USA.
the-
D-Day.
the-
Yeah, it's such a show. I mean, I don't think it got much play actually. It was a big event and affair for them, but it doesn't really chime with Westerners the way you think it might, the way you'd expect it to. I mean, it's a hallowed, sacred day. It's the 80th anniversary, but compare now the kind of genuine mass feeling for it with, say, every May 9th, Victory Day, V-Day in Russia.
Mhm.
You know, the contrast is glaring. It genuinely is sacred to people there.
Well, people in Europe obviously don't really know. And, I mean, they've been quite successful in airbrushing the Russians out of in very short order. I know it's been going on for quite a long time, but really concerted effort was made over the past, 4, 5, 6 years to really delete Russia.
Yeah.
And I mean, Russia, the Red Army was really the army that defeated the Nazis and liberated the concentration camps and stuff for the most part. So they won the Second World War, the Red Army. So the country that won the Second World War effectively, and therefore should have had pride of place at the Victory Day celebrations, weren't allowed to be there.
Yeah.
were
In-
disinvited, and
Yeah.
and yet they have the celebration anyway. So what are you celebrating? Y'all didn't do very much. Well,
Well-
French did a bit, like.
Well, the D-Day is obviously the landing of
Yeah, exactly.
American. And,
Yeah, but
and
as a prelude
the
to-
scale of it and how amazing it was. I think it was 160,000 troops.
A bit late. Johnny come
But I
late.
mean, the Russians had bigger moves almost daily at that time in 1944. Operation Bagration, took place at the same. Well, a couple of weeks later, it was vastly bigger in scale, and they swept through like all of Belarus up to Warsaw. But anyway, I'm not going to start a east-west comparison. Just in itself, like obviously it's been many decades of sort of subtle and then increasingly egregious programming that has altered people's memories of World War II as a whole. So it used to be that they'd be polled, and it was commonly understood that the Soviets did the lion's share of the fighting. And then you can see it go down over the decades, and now it's America basically saved Europe from the Nazis. But in recent years, though, they at least still kept one foot in what actually happened by always inviting Putin until a few years ago. This is before Ukraine war reignites or takes off with the SMO in 2022. Putin was still invited, and now he no longer is. Okay, that's been several years since the Russians are excluded. But in addition, we've gone beyond that this year, I think, because Biden is now saying that he used his D-Day speech on the beach in Normandy to say that Putin is Hitler. In the war has in our war equivalent of what our ancestors, our veterans, who are some of them who are still alive and there with him, he's telling the veterans,
we're fighting
we're
Hitler.
fighting. You fought against Hitler, and now we're fighting against Putin.
Now we're fighting against Hitler, part 2. This time he's Russian.
Mad.
Hitler.
It's mad that they feel that it's safe to even dare. Of course, I don't think most people agree with that, but that's besides the point. In their heads, they've gone so far. They are off in La La Land with how far they're going. Every year, it just gets even more egregious. There were some antics there. People are commenting about, well, Biden obviously always does something stupid when he's out in public. He turns around at one point.
He tries to sit down in a chair.
He tries to sit down in a chair that's not there. People say he shot himself. Yeah, I think he's just spaced out. But then he turns around at one point. I think he was because the U.S. anthem started. He turned around to face the veterans behind him. I think that's what he was doing.
No,
it does look weird.
No, he was looking for a chair.
Well, there's a couple of instances.
Well, there's one where they're spinning him. He was taking a poop in his pants.
Yeah.
But that's him just like, he just kind of thought there was a chair behind him because something was happening where he thought it was appropriate to sit down. He was starting to bend down and he put his hand down and was reaching for a chair, an invisible chair. He should have sat on the invisible chair. But yeah. There were a few others. But yeah, they're kind of to a penny, as they say, with Biden these days.
There's so many. The gaffes, the lies. I'm so he's so repellent though. I find it hard to even want to talk about it. I mean, we could laugh at him, we could correct him. I'm just like, go on. Let's just see this through to the end. Let Putin be Hitler. Give it to Biden a second term. It'll be fun either way. We'll find out stuff for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting that at the same time, like in a kind of the more in the reality-based community, the Russian annual St. Petersburg Economic Forum took place, the 27th now, and it's 12,000 people came from over 100 countries.
They have to have something to do, like
Experts, journalists, Western journalists go there too. Analysts, CEOs, companies. Yeah,
it's a multipolar world.
Multipolar world, and it
blooming.
It gets bigger every year. And who wants to go? Lots of Americans want to go. It's so bad now, the situation, that Scott Ritter had to be stopped at the airport in DC and prevented from leaving by police, who apparently sheepishly said to him, We know this is like, we're under orders from
We know this is political.
State Department. State Department
Yeah.
told us to take your passport. Please come with us. So he ended up still speaking remotely
Mm.
at one of the sessions.
Mhm. But
He was
what was that?
barred from going.
What was that going to achieve? What did that achieve for the State Department? Stopping Scott Ritter from going. Just because we can. Just because.
Well, it's kind of smacks of desperation, you know.
Yeah, I mean, does it
The
achieve
land of the
anything?
free is going to have to physically start restraining people from interacting with reality. Anyway, that's just a bit of gossip because nothing else. Although if I was Scott Ritter, considering the things he said, you know, you might want to make the next trip to Russia your last because it's pretty hairy. 'Cause we might joke about, well, let's just see what they do. Go on, raid all you want, take it all. But one of the inevitable consequences of this will be they'll become more and more actually Nazi-like.
Mhm.
You know, will the time come when we just can't talk like this about politics anymore, except in metaphor or obliquely or something?
Mhm.
How deluded are that substantial portion of the population who will follow the leaders to whatever end? We got a taste of it in COVID, which got arrested. So COVID was artificially arrested by
Mhm.
Putin launching the SMO,
Mhm.
but it was on the cusp of being, you know, talk show hosts like, it's time to round those bastards up
Mhm.
and forcibly jab them.
Mhm.
You know, it's in their psyche to go there. So, this is not related to the St. Petersburg Forum, but it's got its own backstory. But it's another kind of symptom of how tetchy the political situation is. A German MP fled to Russia this week. A sitting MP. It's an MP. It's an MP. Now, was she a local MP or national? I'm not sure, but she's MP for Hamburg. Okay, former AFD member. Okay, former AFD member Olga Peterson has claimed that the authorities in Hamburg were planning to seize her children. And RT's right up here says she is Hamburg MP, although she's former AFD, whatever. I'm not sure of her status, but she left Hamburg with her children last month. Before she disappeared, because she was AFD, and she was expelled by the AFD for traveling to Russia as an election observer in March and declaring the vote open, democratic, and free.
Mhm.
That's why it reminded me of Scott Ritter. Like, you can go once, you can go twice, but like, seriously, after that, consider that you might be Julian Assange, you know, if you're considered to be enough of a threat because of your voice, your prestige, maybe your background in intelligence or whatever. So she's made the decision to go a second time and the last time. Maybe she's paranoid, maybe not. I don't know what the full backstory is, but and note also that the alternative for Deutschland is supposed to be Russia's Trojan horse in Germany, right? Joined at the hip. But no, they get shit scared, or someone in the system there does, and they are going to report her for being a Russian agent. So that's your political option in Europe. That's the most, in quote, the most pro-Russia. That's as close as you can get. And they will rat you out to the CIA Western-controlled, quote-unquote, democracy. So it's getting hairier by the day, you know? Depending on where you are and who you are, you're going to have to start speaking metaphorically or making hard decisions about what you will or won't speak about. Unrelated again, but similar kind of. Alex Jones looks like he's lost InfoWars. He has to pay 1.5 billion or something in that court case. I thought it was going to be overturned. Like, it was absurd, the ruling against it, but he is going to be. He's agreed to give it up. That's the first step, how far will they go with him? But again, Alex Jones is obviously a very high-profile voice, so
He's agreed to give what up?
InfoWars, the company,
As part of the
settlement,
Sandy Hook business?
yeah.
Well, he's gonna what, give it to someone else, or is that just
He has to
punishment?
sell it. He has to sell it.
In order-
Liquidate his assets, basically.
Right.
Yeah. To pay something towards the, quote, $1.5 billion
Yeah.
settlement.
Yeah.
Anyway, going back to St. Petersburg, Putin said a number of interesting things. When he's talking to a group of journalists before the event, he said that the U.S. political elite is burning the country to the ground. He also said something, I didn't see the context of it, but I think I know what he's talking about. Did you hear that? Well, he says something that the U.S. regime owes the world around $54 trillion. I'm going to guess, without checking, I could be wrong, that he's probably talking about this seigniorage that comes with the US dollar. So for every transaction that's made outside of the United States, even if a dollar isn't directly involved in it, you're in India paying rupee for whatever, there is at least a fraction of the cost of what you're doing that goes to the US. It's seigniorage, and Yanis Varoufakis calculated it at something like 2% of all transactions globally. The value of them ends up in the United States by default because of the US dollar being the global reserve currency. That may be what he was referring to there. He said, well, I'm glad to hear him say, this is the first time he said it, so obviously it's duh to us, but he said that Trump's prosecution is entirely political, which is interesting because they don't usually say anything about it. Means that, well, it kind of suggests that they know that it was rigged as well. So
Everybody and his dog knows that it's political at the very least, or should.
But probably the big thing from him, though, was announcing, in his own terms, an asymmetrical response to Russia being hit with U.S. weapons from Ukraine. Saying that, well, he was very coy about how he said it, but he said, what if, hypothetically, Russia were to sell weapons to enemies of the United States? Which backed up another, quote-unquote, drunken tweet from Medvedev the day before. About the enemies of our enemy, being our friends.
It wasn't just selling weapons to enemies of the United States, because they've been doing that for a long time, right?
Well, like the new stuff.
No, he didn't. He didn't specify anything in particular. What he was saying was that it would be a tit for tat, basically, situation where the US is giving weapons to Ukraine, specifically with the intent of. For the purpose of attacking, using those weapons to attack inside Russia. And he said, well, we could do the same thing with countries we can't really do it to countries on Russia's border necessarily. Maybe Mexico, who knows? Cuba.
America's, yeah.
Cuba or in other places around the world where America has military bases,
Which is anywhere.
Specifically to give, pick certain countries that, want to use weapons against American assets.
So Syria,
Yemen,
North Korea,
Iran,
Cuba,
Syria.
Oh yeah, Cuba. Well, maybe it's not related, but the timing's weird. Russian warships are on their way to Cuba, but that's happened often since the 60s without the same kind of dramas back then. But Venezuela would be another one, I suppose.
Maybe.
Yeah, but it's one thing to give it to the constitutionally legitimate authorities of a country. Are they really going to just pick a fight with the United States?
No, he's obviously talking about. I mean, you can narrow it down.
What you would really do it to do it as America does, you have to give it to terrorists.
No, you give it to like we mentioned, the countries you mentioned, like particularly in the Middle East, Iran, Syria, Yemen, Iraq.
And they'd
Not to, not yeah.
they'd use them for defensive purposes.
Well, no, it depends. Like, I mean, in Syria, definitely they would use them against American assets wherever they are. In Iran, they would use them against. In Yemen, they would definitely use them against American assets. There's 3 countries there. Iraq, maybe not. But maybe in that case, if you give it to the Iraqi quote unquote resistance, which is these days is hard to pick it out from the actual Iraqi government. You know what I mean? Iraq's kind of a bit of a complicated situation there, but there's definitely countries in the Middle East, Cuba, although Cuba wouldn't necessarily turn around and shoot some missiles into Florida or anything like that. But so I think you can narrow it down to you quickly understand who you'd be referring to, when you're talking about the Middle East.
Yeah, well, that's tricky for Russia. I mean, there's Israel to consider.
No, they wouldn't be necessarily firing them at Israel. They'd be firing them at American assets.
American assets are in the Middle East for Israel.
No, but that's not, doesn't matter. Like, Israel's not going to get worked up if it doesn't attack. Israel is fine. Israel doesn't care if anybody goes down.
Syria will be selective about what it fires at?
Well, they'll be told to be, like.
Okay.
It'd be a requirement. Like, Syria, is largely, the Syrian government is largely, under the control of the Russians at this point,
Yeah. We moved away, but just going back to the Petersburg Forum, someone who left Russia, left the land of the free, NATO stan, for the second time and for good. So she's smart. Karen Kniesel, you may remember her. Putin danced at her wedding and they threw a fit. And a few months later, they basically shot to hell the government she was in Austria with an entrapment scandal that was probably Mossad, MI6. Freedom of speech has disappeared in Europe, ex-Austrian foreign minister. We know this, but it's still, this is the one place where she would say this, because she won't get a platform in the West to say this, and she probably wouldn't even say it, because she says Europe was previously a dreamland for people in other parts of the world due to its constitutionalism, freedom, equality of women and men, security and welfare. Well, sorry to say, but all that is gone. What Europe was is gone, and I deplore it. Scroll down a bit. The continent has lost its soul. It has sold its soul. The essence of Europe once upon a time was freedom, equality in front of the court systems. I haven't seen it. Freedom of speech is gone and it won't come back so quickly. This is for me the most traumatic aspect. So,
freedom.
Yeah, obviously she's talking a bit like a boomer, but still she's noting the change. I mean, can you get, even in opposition, can you get a politician in Europe to speak philosophically at all?
No, they're like hen's teeth.
At least he attempts to speak, something philosophical, something meaningful, not the fucking trite stuff they keep saying, even when they're out of government and they're no longer vying for power. They have to keep playing ball or the pension can go. I mean, the control on leaders in Europe and the United States is total. It's so total that she can only say that in Moscow.
Freedom. Free speech, all about the free speech.
Well, geez, Macron, we mocked him, but he's doing it. He's building his Grande Armée to go into Ukraine. He claims that they're making headway. They've got instructors, in quotes, together. Did he name the countries? French president claimed that several allies, okay, he's been cagey about who, we want to have a coalition. Several of our partners have already given their agreement. We will use the coming days to finalize the largest possible coalition capable of responding to Ukraine's request.
Yeah.
Scroll down a bit, please. He didn't identify the countries.
Poland. Send the Poles in
Other
first.
than France. Yeah, it's going to be the Easterners, definitely.
The first wave will be the Poles. Second wave, a bunch of the Baltics.
And then the La La Land stuff. He argued that dispatching specialists to do training work, in quotes, inside Ukraine should not provoke a Russian response. So that's what they're hoping. They really seriously think that this is going to go, yeah, fine. We are not at war with Russia. We do not want an escalation.
What's the title of that article? Okay, so building coalition to send troops. That's what we're not talking about, but then you read the details and it's about we're sending instructors to instruct the Ukrainians how to fight against Putler. So they've been doing that for the past 2 years, quietly, and there's been no media talk about it. But now they talk it up and talk about it in those terms, knowing that it's going to get in the media, or deliberately seeding it to the media so that the media says,
yeah.
you know, and they themselves, Macron talks it up in such a way that everybody gets the impression that they're going to send, because everybody's going, we're going to war with Russia, we're sending NATO troops to Russia.
When he began in April,
blah, blah.
he said we're sending French troops under the French flag.
So they talk about all that, you know, and they're trying to get the story straight, and all of that says to me that what's actually happening is that they're preparing for the near future collapse of Ukrainian military and the partition of Ukraine. So they want to have troops, NATO country troops, NATO members, troops in Ukraine to hold the now, annexed western part of Ukraine.
Well, yeah, and they'll talk it up as liberated. Yeah.
Well, they'll just take it and say Putin, you know, only goes so far. You're only allowed to go so far. You can only go. Maybe you won't get as far as the Dnieper or whatever, but they're basically going. They'll see how it goes. You know, have to wait and see how it goes. But they're planning to have troops on the ground. It's going to be a peacekeeping force. You haven't mentioned it, but it's a peacekeeping force because, of course, if they said it was a peacekeeping force, then they'd be capitulating, right? They can't call it a peacekeeping force, but that's actually what it is: a peacekeeping force of a coalition of NATO soldiers, NATO country soldiers, and they're preparing it in advance for the effective defeat of Ukraine and Russia, obviously they're going to take the 4 regions that they already took and are still trying to liberate. But once that's liberated, but it's not so much about the amount of territory they're taking. It's about the collapse of the Ukrainian military as a fighting machine, that it cannot no longer sustain itself, primarily because they don't have the manpower anymore, the experienced, well-trained manpower, because most of them are dead or injured. So you can't have a war if you don't have people, don't have soldiers. So they're soon going to run out of soldiers to the point. I mean, it's not that they're down to zero. It just means once you reach a certain point, you can't actually muster an effective offense or defense, let alone offense. So it basically, the front line collapses, they move back, whatever's left moves back, and Russia finally does the thing that everybody wanted them to do a long time ago, is sweep across country and take whatever, as much as they can, whatever they decide. And they're probably planning the same thing themselves behind the scenes, and they may have been talking to Western governments about this, a negotiated settlement, right? Because that's what happened in the Cold War, right? They all agreed on it peaceably. They had a big giant fight, right? Even though Russia was supposedly friends with Western powers during the Second World War, whatever. Anyway, the point being that they very quickly became enemies because we're not ideologically aligned anymore. You're commie and we're capitalist. So we're going to sit down and have a nice agreement at Yalta, and
ironically, Crimea,
and partition it in a friendly way, and then we'll be at war right afterwards, right? Cold War, but we'll be at war. So these people, it's not, like I said many times before, this isn't personal for any of these people. It's not personal for Macron. Despite, you have to not believe the way they talk, not listen to the way they talk about this, like, you know, we're fighting for democracy, evil Putin, blah, blah, because they're very... It's not that they're just realistic and pragmatic. I don't want to give them props in that respect. They're just like cynical, cold-blooded psychotypes who don't really care and only use emotional speech to manipulate the population. They see it all as it's just business. War is just business. Of course, we have to talk it up and shout at each other and scream at each other and, act like it's an episode of, what do you call it? What do you call that reality TV show where people go into a house together and fight with each other? Anyway.
Jeez, I don't remember.
Yeah, anyway, something like that.
Big Brother.
Big Brother. I have to make it look like it's an episode of Big Brother. We hate each other, we're at war with each other. But afterwards, there's producers behind the scenes who are directing the whole thing in a certain sense, or telling people what to say in a certain sense. And then, there's division. It becomes practical at a certain point, Everyone calms down. It's just a game. Where footballers shake hands after the game? Or even boxers, better example, maybe boxers. They punch the face of each other for, an hour, like looking like they want to kill each other, and then they shake hands and hug afterwards. That's war. I mean, of course, the dupes in it are all the soldiers, right?
I don't know. Lloyd Austin's visit to Ukraine, he didn't come away thinking that was...
We would have had to, it's not personal,
Yeah.
That's the risk you take. He was a fool for going there.
And Macron announced 4 times he was going and didn't. He
he's a bit smarter, right?
he's
also gay.
Am I going to come back from this?
Yeah, so he doesn't go, right? Because it's it can be real, but you're not stupid enough to make it real for you. You make it real for the soldiers and the ordinary people and whatever economy you destroy, the hundreds of thousands of soldiers you kill. But for us, it's just business, we'll see how it goes. We've got to whip people up and keep the war effort going. We've got to got the rhetoric going and the, warmongering and jingoism and patriotism and Hitler and fighting for freedom and, you got to do all that to keep the fervor going so people actually go and keep fighting in the war, right? Because we're making a shitload of money from that as well, obviously, especially in America and in Europe, from selling weapons, getting rid of all the old stocks of weapons and producing new ones, which is good for jobs and good for defence contractors, and politicians have, close relationships with defence contractors who give them large donations for their re-election campaigns. So that's something to get excited about,
Yeah.
That's something to get...
It's good for Scranton.
It's something to get to put on a show for, you know what I mean? To get worked up and call people Hitler and stuff and say that we're fighting for the very fundamentals of our democratic system, and hell awaits if we don't keep going here. If we don't keep going, it's just hell. If we don't keep
going, Putin will be in Portugal by
Christmas. So all those things you say to keep it going because you're making money from it. You're PR for the whole war thing. Keep it going until it's not going anymore. Okay, look, the show's over, right? There's no more money to be made out of this. We've made all the money we can out of it. Let's see how we can make some more money now out of partitioning Ukraine and getting as much of Ukraine as we want and taking control of that and privatizing all of the industry within Ukraine, whatever's left in the part that we get, and then we can make a bunch of money out of that too. And then it's all good. And then so that's all done. That Ukraine business, pretty good. Bank balance is looking fine after that. What's our next move? Anybody got another war?
You got a prediction, actually. What comes after? You had COVID, Ukraine. What comes next?
After what?
What's the next big?
Well, the next big thing is Disease X, yeah. Another COVID.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But that's a bit recent to just go back to
another
pandemic.
But it worked so well. It worked well, and I mean, timing on that one is not sure, but they'll drop another one, yeah. Because it's just so good, like. They got such a taste of... Because that's different, war is something that they've done... The political class have done it forever, right? It's just... it's nothing new, you know what I mean? But the COVID thing was like... This for democracies, This was like, wow, so this is what it's like to be a dictator? Like, this is fucking awesome. This is cool. I really like that.
I can tell them they can go out on Tuesdays, but not on Wednesdays.
Yeah, can you imagine? And telling people that, the police will enforce these rules.
Even though I know they won't.
You're not allowed to leave your house. And if you don't listen to what I say, please be aware, the forces of law and order will force you to do what I'm telling you to do. I.e., these are my henchmen. And I'm saying, stay in your fucking house. If I catch one of you bastards outside your house after 6 o'clock, my henchmen will beat you around the head with a baton. And they were like,
and then later,
they were like, that feels awesome. I want to do that again. Can we do the COVID thing again, please? That was so much fun. I mean, it was such duper delight all over the place. Like, we had all these assholes. We had all these dupes, hiding in their house under threat of being beaten around the head and killing their granny while we were having parties. I mean, it doesn't get better than that,
Dupers delight. You remember that time when the British minister, was he health secretary?
Mm.
He was pretending to be contrite and he was crying on camera, but he was
Matt Hancock,
but he was smiling.
Yep.
Especially at the end, and then they cut the camera, but you could see that he was.
He was trying to pretend to cry, and he was laughing behind his phony tears.
Okay, Disease X next. Great. Can we have nuclear Armageddon? No, that would be the easy way out. Yeah, and then the fun would end. Mexico has a new president. Claudia Sheinbaum. I don't know how you say it. It's obviously a name of German Jewish origin, but she's Mexican. So how do you say that with a Spanish accent? Elected last week. Country's first female president. The 61-year-old is a former Mexico City mayor, which is a common route to power in Mexico, and a climate scientist. She had the backing of the predecessor AMLO, Lopez Obrador. She beat him, actually. The highest number of votes ever recorded for a candidate in Mexican history, surpassing AMLO's result. Her family's all scientists, including her brother, paternal grandparents from Lithuania, maternal grandparents from Bulgaria. So she's Jewish on both sides. There are around 50,000 Jews in Mexico, and the population is 127.5 million people. They really are exceptional. She hasn't. I wondered, did Israel come up in the campaign? Apparently not a bit, or a little, but no controversy. She avoided the issue. So she's lefty, of course, like her predecessor. But so is she? What does she think about the war? I mean, she hasn't commented on the ICJ case against Israel, nor has she been asked where she stands on Gaza in general. Some people are like asking us about the fact that 37 political candidates in this election campaign were assassinated. I thought that can't be right. It's true.
Mexico?
Yeah, 37 were killed. So people were jumping the gun, though, and they were assuming that those were other candidates for the president.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't. They were. So the country was voting to fill 20,000 positions. The thing about democracy, like it's too much. Do people really care about that much? 20,000, like, mayors and governors and DAs and everything.
Yeah.
There were 70,000 candidates to fill those. So I guess 37 people getting whacked in Mexico is
par for the course.
Just another Tuesday, no?
Yep.
Sorry.
It's awesome.
It was a high number even for Mexico. But it's,
This is Matt Hancock before we... I think it's worth listen to.
That was
just simple words
classic.
there, reacting it. You're quite emotional by that.
Well, it's just, it's been such a tough year for so many people, and there's William Shakespeare putting it so simply for everybody that, we can get on with our lives, and there's still a few months to go. I've still got this worry that we can't blow it now, Piers.
That was him,
She was laughing initially because she thought he was laughing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you go back to the start, it was just they don't have that segment at the very beginning, but they just talked about the first guy who'd been vaccinated. His name was Shakespeare.
Yeah,
and they were saying you must be very proud. It must be quite a proud moment for you, although it's, difficult, whatever, but you must be very proud, because he's supposedly the one who got the vaccine rolled out, even though he's a complete retard, anyway, and that's what the Piers Morgan just said to him, and is the way he responded. Go ahead.
Just simple words there, reacting it. You're quite emotional about that.
Well, it's just, it's been such a tough year for so many people, and
that's who you're dealing with.
It's so bad.
And this was in the, that guy's, he's a particular type of psycho, that guy. There's many like him.
Essential psycho.
No, one of the characteropaths, you know what I mean, like a schizoid or something like that, who knows. He's just a very strange person. This is in the Telegraph today. COVID jobs may be to blame for increase in excess deaths.
Oh Jesus, no, you can't be showing that. We'll be kicked off. Oh no, hang on. Updating programming.
It's in the Telegraph.
Fine, it's in the Telegraph now. Yeah, it's okay. Carry on.
So
if we said that here like 3 years ago, well, there you go.
yeah, well, we're ahead of the curve,
They know. I think they knew all along. It's amazing that people kind of enjoy participating in a mass lie as well, to some extent. Not everyone, but a lot of people.
Yeah.
They like to be duped.
Maybe to blame for increasing it. Maybe blah blah. That's the first little trickling out of the reality, and you'll never get the full reality. You might get it in like 20 years or something like that. Some inquiry or something after new information comes to light or something, when it's all done and dusted and nobody cares anymore. That's the way it always goes, So, but you don't want to be caught in that kind of situation where, and they've done this repeatedly, where they drop some kind of bullshit like that on the population and cover it up, force something on the population, force something nefarious on the population via some manipulation, and only several years or many years later, do people go, oh, do you remember that thing about the COVID? Did you read that? They were saying that it was all a load of shite. That it was all, but all the people involved in it are all dead now, Fauci's dead, and all those people, so the people that they pinned it on are all dead, so we can't do anything about it. But, so it's important to be, to be aware of that happens and has happened, and COVID is a case, and this is just the first little trickle, and you can assume that behind this headline, there's a bigger and much more kind of shocking for a lot of people reality, which is that the COVID jabs may have killed more people than they saved, and that there was no need for any lockdowns, that COVID was in fact, and this is also in the news as well, that COVID was in fact no more dangerous to the average person than the flu, and that all of that whole debacle was manipulated and forced on the population by and a certain number of people knew it and they did it on purpose. So it's important to be aware of that, and that they've done that in the past. They did that with COVID, and they will likely do it again. So when the next one comes around, you don't want to be put in that. You don't want to find yourself the dupe who sucks it up at the time because you're manipulated, and then only finds out later, if you survive whatever it is that they dropped on you, only find out later that you were sold a line of bullshit. Does anybody like that? I don't know. Maybe some people like that. Maybe some people like being a tool.
Some
right?
maybe, yeah.
But I think a lot of people don't like being a tool. As long as, most of the people who are still relatively normal out there don't like being, like human beings, generally speaking, don't like being lied to and manipulated and treated like a fool and put in a difficult and precarious and dangerous position by people just for fun, right? Most normal people. So
about half. So I don't know if it's most.
No, I'd say most.
Yeah.
Well, if you frame it to them that way, hey, what if I like?
Yeah, but in the back of the mind, even as they're hearing you clearly speak common sense, the back of the mind is still going, oh God, even just listening to this guy, the authority figures aren't going to be happy with me.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't even address it in that way. I'd just address it.
They have stress going on just hearing you say it.
In order to make the point, I would ask the person, like, here, you live in that house, right? What about if, unbeknownst to you some night, I run into your house and start screaming that there's a fire and freak you out, or maybe like, shoot off some guns and something, totally freak you out and get you and your whole family to run out of the house in terror, thinking that the house is burning down. And then when you're outside, I stand and go, I was only messing. Are you up for that? You want a bit of that? Maybe it's exciting to some people, but like I'm really talking about causing you some kind of terror.
Yeah.
I'm also causing you, in the context of COVID, like to expand that out, that you're not going to go to you're not going to be able to see your granny anymore. You're not going to. She's going to die, and you're not going to go to her funeral. You're going to be locked in your house. You're going to not be able to engage in civil society. You're not going to be able to do any of the things that you usually do. I'm going to lock you in your house, and I'm going to terrify you. I'm going to make you jump through all sorts of hoops to do things that increase the fear and sense of insecurity in you. And then afterwards, I'm going to tell you that it was all a joke.
No, but that's the part where the analogy doesn't work. They're not going to get that message. There might be some signs, hints, or 20 years later, some information.
But that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about here about a situation where most people, if most people were to, not talking about whether or not people believe what the facts that are coming out around COVID, but those are the facts. So, you know what I mean? So what I'm saying is, like, when I say I don't think anybody, if you phrased it to them in that way, that you want me to put one over on you and then only reveal many years later that all that shit you went through, assuming it was shit for you, but like to whatever extent you suffered or didn't like the COVID restrictions, that was unnecessary. And you didn't have to do that. And it was just people in position of power having fun at your expense. Do you like that idea? Detached from COVID and all that kind of stuff, do you like that general idea? And I think most normal people, and that's why I say most people, would say, no, I don't like that. I want to live a normal, peaceful, mostly unencumbered life. I don't want that kind of shit in my life. I don't want to have to go through that or any variation of that. So if I get them to say yes to that, then I would say, well, this has happened before. COVID was an example of that happening, whether you believe it or not, and it's likely to happen again. So if you want to avoid that from happening again, whether or not they choose to believe me or choose to believe the facts or whatever, you still say to them, try to appeal to their rational mind and say, if you don't want to go through that again, then don't be so willing to believe people in positions of authority when they come out with these kind of terror tactics in the future. People may or may not be able to respond in the correct way to that, But it's useful to at least tell them. At least you can say, well, you were told. You had a choice. Sorry you weren't able to do it. Not even saying that you didn't do it because you liked it or something, but maybe you just simply weren't able to do it. Maybe the weight of the propaganda and manipulation that was dumped on you was too much for you to push back against, and you had to go along with it. You had no choice in a certain sense, just because of your constitution or your nervous system or the way you're made. But
yeah.
We
shall see if you're right. And the next current thing is Scandemic Part 2. This time it's hilarious.
This time it's personal.
We're going to see.
This time it's really serious.
It's fairly predictable that it won't be as successful for them in terms of capturing minds. That's a given, because there's a big chunk of people who aren't going back into that box ever again. But the question is, for those who remain in La La Land, are they still a substantial enough weight that it's going to happen successfully anyway?
Yeah.
That's the unknown. Latest from Gaza, the IDF launched a raid to free 4 hostages and killed 274 Palestinians.
Just before we get around to that, and there isn't much there, but I just want to, just before we round it on there about COVID, there's just this other one on COVID. It came out at the same time. It's also, I think, in the Telegraph. This headline, if you click on the headline there, Scotty, the picture, you can get it bigger. Celebrity doctors promoted COVID vaccine without declaring payments. TV viewers not told that they had previously received thousands of pounds from AstraZeneca. That right there is the science, right? Yeah. That's the impartial, just the facts science. Yeah. Now, if you want to believe that celebrity doctors, which who were, for the most part, at least in the UK and even in European countries, it was celebrity doctors. They were actually actual doctors, but doctors who tend to appear on TV a lot. They were the ones who were promoting the vaccine because they were known to the population. It wasn't just some faceless doctor that you never saw before. It was this guy. Oh yeah, I know him from TV. He talks about like health stuff on TV. I've heard him before, and he gives some good advice. He's the one who's now telling me to take the vaccine. And he's also the science because he's a doctor, right? He's the science, like Fauci is the science. All doctors are the science. You know, the closest thing to God, that you can get in an atheist worldview. These people were all had been paid by the pharmaceutical companies to tell you to take the product. Now, you can say that's still the science, and you can shove your head further up your bum if you want, and think that the money these people were being paid had no bearing on the extent or the way in which they promoted, the extent to which or the way in which they promoted the COVID vaccine to the population. You can do that if you want, but if you do, I recommend you just finish the job and disappear up your own arsehole, because that's fucking ridiculous, because you're not a rational person anymore. So anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's egregious. So that's where you have an actual spokesperson.
Money.
Effectively, they may as well have AstraZeneca branded on their head,
Right.
or sponsoring. Well, that's the thing.
They're
Those
basically saying-
vaccine companies did sponsor those show segments
I'm
in the United States.
I'm the science.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
I'm the biased science. I'm the yeah.
But it's. Do you remember about the scandal that when it broke, that something like a majority of some portion or another, most papers submitted to scientific journals are fake.
Mm-hmm.
That is, the results, the conclusion's wrong, the data's falsified, payments from pharmaceutical companies are not declared, etc., etc. They basically fail their own
Mhm.
touting of the peer review standard.
Mhm.
That broke in the mid-2000s.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So this celebrity thing happens in 2019, almost a generation after the science broke.
Mm-hmm.
That's how bad it is. So,
Yeah.
how did it become normal? Like, if that had happened in the before times, that it broke, that a person was on TV, especially on an impartial broadcaster like the BBC, and had been paid, that would be a career-ending move for the people who got her on, the anchor in the studio,
Mm-hmm.
for the person who was on.
Mm-hmm.
They should be what they did to all the other good doctors. They should be struck off the register, doctors.
Mm-hmm.
But instead they get promoted. We're so far down into the upside down world that everything has changed. I mean, people who do these things get promoted when they should have everything taken from at least their prestige and their position to
Mhm.
be able to lie to people like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were saying about Gaza, yeah. Well, what more is there to say there than it's just psychopathy on display. It's, what is it now? October, November, December, January, February. What is that? 8 months? 7 months? It's 8 months, yeah. 8 months of, I don't know what the total is now, probably up close to 35, 40,000 dead. Vast majority of them civilians.
It's got to be a lot more than that. It's been stuck on, the count's been stuck on 35 since Christmas.
Yeah.
I think what happened was they can't tally anymore because Israel specifically drone targeted the people who do the counting.
Mm.
So plus there's all these people under the rubble. There's some estimates I've seen, it could be 100,000.
Mm.
Plus starvation,
likely.
malnutrition. I mean, it's way more. It won't come out for a while yet, but It's telling though that even British Sky News, which is Murdoch, which is yay Israel, give him hell type position on this thing, it's so bad that they have to report it like this headline. What happened last night? Gaza horror movie scenes as Hamas. Oh, okay. They've changed that since I saw it. That's interesting. It didn't say that before.
Hamas says.
As Hamas says.
Yeah,
So they somebody said, we should probably tone that down a bit. The original headline was more like horror movie scenes as 210 Palestinians killed during Israeli risk missions. So they've inserted Hamas says, but whatever. Still, despite that insertion, the death toll, I think it's more. I think it's more like 270 now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it was last month was the latest deal, potential ceasefire deal that was on the table, and it was Hamas would release all the remaining hostages in exchange for a cessation of a ceasefire, basically. And the Israelis rejected that, like they've rejected every other one before. Like they rejected all the different accords between the Palestinians over the decades, because Israel's entire existence has been leading up to this point. Basically, it's all been about this point of getting rid of the Palestinians. I mean, the Nakba in 1948. They did the first wave of getting rid of them, and now they're finishing the job. It's like freaking almost 80 years later. But Israel is not interested. They're clearly using the hostages. They don't want the hostages released. The hostages are a means to
an end.
To destroy Gaza and destroy as many Palestinians in Gaza as possible, including Hamas, or so they claim. So that's the cynical aspect of it. They don't really care about the hostages. The hostages are a useful tool to continue the wholesale slaughter of Palestinians. And the Brits are up to their neck in it, and the Americans are obviously up to their neck in it, aiding and abetting the entire operation with a thin veneer of we're not involved.
Yeah.
But the Brits have been, there's been multiple flights. The Brits have been based in Cyprus that have been channeling or ferrying, flying weapons and personnel, etc., into Israel, multiple times over the past 7 or 8 months. And obviously the Americans have been loading the place up with weapons continuously, So yeah, this is an Israeli, American, British, for the most part, slaughter of Palestinians.
Yeah.
And we're meant to believe,
like the Yemen war.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Saudi Arabia versus Yemen.
Yeah.
Except the command centers are all staffed by NATO. The pilots are Australian. The jets are American.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the Saudi army. Right. Okay. Gotcha. So what he's... Tucker Carlson generally avoids this topic, maybe for strategic reasons. But his reasoning in a recent podcast interview was, I don't care about this because it's not our fight. It's Israel versus Palestinians.
Yeah. Yeah, of course not.
Is it?
Right.
It's got made in America stamped all over, dude.
He's willfully ignorant about that, and maybe it's because he needs to be, because Israel lobby, because AIPAC, etc. But who knows? I mean, there's very few people who are immune from AIPAC in Israel, and of course it's the same thing with Peterson in a certain sense. It's the whole Christian thing, which is bizarre. Tucker's a believer in Jeebus, and he's a Christian, practicing Christian, believes in his God and in Jesus. So, and no matter how, New Testament you are, those people don't seem to be able to distance themselves from the Old Testament and the Hebrews and the Jews, the Israelites, and obviously they don't know and don't understand the history of that time and who Jesus really was, and what was actually going on there. And there's a really good book called From Paul to Mark on that topic that lays it all bare as to what was actually going on there. And anybody who reads that will no longer have any problem whatsoever
Separating the two.
And it would be very good for Christians and Jesus freaks, for people who who follow Jesus, let's say, because it will allow them to fully detach, not only fully detach from the Israel gang, but see them for who they are and what they are.
And to ask questions the next time Netanyahu says, our war is your war.
Yeah.
It's a war for civilization, Western civilization.
Yeah.
Another Boeing's gone bust. Check this out. This is just yesterday, I think. A flight taking off from Toronto airport. Someone's identified it as a Boeing anyway. Video captures the moment Air Canada 777 had a compressor stall on departure from Toronto Pearson Wednesday.
Holy crap! Got an engine fire.
It's a new light show.
Holy shit!
Yeah, so if you are flying anywhere, yeah, favor Airbus if you can. That's like the 20th incident in the last year. What other? Oh, I thought maybe this is symbolic as well. There's another video. A U.S. Apollo astronaut, I think it was one of the missions after 1969. The guy's 90 years old, right? And he he loves flying. Yeah, there he is there. William Anders, an astronaut on the first lunar orbit mission. Okay, so that's 68. That's the year before the moon landing. He was 90 years old and he was flying, scroll down there, a vintage Air Force T-34 somewhere up, was in Washington State. And will it play there? If someone was filming it, he was doing a loop. And he hit the water.
That would be right, yeah.
Nuts.
So he's 90 years old?
90.
What the hell?
He loves flying. He loves...
He died loving...
he died doing what he loved.
Yeah. Well, maybe he
Yeah,
just
his family
decided-
maybe should have not let him do that, but...
Or maybe he just decided, I'm too old for this shit. I'm out of here. Just to finish on what we started on, actually, and I meant to play this at the time, but it kind of sums up. We started talking about Trump and the Trump trial and what was actually going on and how it was just a big political witch hunt and stuff. This is, you can expand this, you look at his face and you play it and turn the volume up. This is just, for me, it says it all. It's the answer to what was the Trump trial all about and what has the Trump trials all been about.
Mr. President, can you tell us, sir, Donald
Make it
Trump
bigger.
refers to himself as a political prisoner and blames you directly. What's your response to that, sir? Do you think the conviction will have an impact on the campaign? We'd love to hear your thoughts, sir.
Should he be on the ballot, sir?
That smirk, that's the smirk of
That
the
wry
entire
smile.
establishment, that all of us. It's like we're reality's creators, and the rest of you, will just be left to study what we do.
Yeah. Oh shit. And there's this one, which is so Trump campaign used it
For a campaign ad. Oh yeah.
This is a bit closer.
This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent.
Mr. President, can you tell us, sir, Donald Trump refers to himself as a political prisoner and blames you directly. What's your response to that, sir?
Creepy old dude. It's time to fire Biden. Yeah, for sure. Well, good luck with firing Biden. You don't get to fire him. He's going to be president forever. He's going to be Emperor Biden. He'd fly around in one of those kind of flying seats. I think it's Star Wars.
Are we done?
Yeah, I'm just looking at his creepy face. Is just playing at me there. It's like, get away, creepy old man. I'd trip him up. Yeah. So I think that's all I can think of. A very strange story about a UK. Well, speaking of, remember I was mentioning there, doctors, COVID doctors,
Selling the
vaccine doctors.
for money.
Yeah, there was a guy at the time. He's been on British TV. His name is Michael Mosley.
Is he related to the Muslims?
No, Michael Mosley, and he was on holiday. Maybe he is. He was on holiday, but he was into like the keto diet and all that kind of stuff. And he gave a lot of good advice on the keto, although he did promote the vaccines. But he gave a lot of good advice about keto over a long period of time. You know, about an intermittent fasting and stuff. You know. So anyway, he was on holiday this past week on a Greek island, not far off a few miles off the Turkish border, off Turkey, on the Greek island, Simi, I think it's called. Very small island. It's about 4 miles by 2 miles or something like that, or 4 kilometres by 2 kilometres. Something like that. Very small little island, and only has 2 little towns on it. That are close by, about a kilometre between each town. The rest of it's just little coves and beaches and stuff. So he was... Last Wednesday, he had taken a boat, him and his wife had taken a boat, and 2 kids taken a boat from the little town on a little cove on one of the islands, just round the coast a little bit onto a beach. And they stayed on the beach a little while. This was on Wednesday, and at about 1:30 or so on Wednesday, he decided to get up and he's going to walk back to the first town, which is it's only about 700 metres. It's only half a mile walk along a track, along just a kind of stony track, back to this town, and then he was going to walk another kilometre. Apparently, he was going to walk another kilometre on around the coast to the town where he was staying, the slightly bigger village. Very small little villages. But he didn't appear back that evening then. So his wife stayed, and he went for the walk basically. So it was about a mile in total, a bit more than a mile in total. It was kind of warm, 35 degrees, but he had an umbrella. And he was carrying an umbrella, and he was seen in the first little town, which is about half a mile from the beach. He was seen there on CCTV camera just before he went on for the further 1 kilometre walk just around the coast to the place where he was actually staying, where the house they were staying in. And he was going to a marina. There's a marina there or whatever. But he never showed up that evening. His wife announced sounded the alarm basically, and they started looking for him by Wednesday evening. So no sign of him. And this is like, I mean, he was seen on CCTV, you know, so he's put in that area, right? And he can't really have gone very far. And there's no trees on this island. None. At all, basically. It's just kind of rocky hills and not very tall hills, you know. So he was seen about a kilometre from... Last time we seen was a kilometre from the village he was staying in. So they searched around there, searched over into the next village. They're all over the little hills around and stuff, you know. Helicopter out and stuff. That's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And they searched the whole area. And then today, they announced that his body was found. And it was found...
In the sea or something?
No, just about 20 metres from the beach. From the marina in the town that he was staying in. Just back off the beach, just behind the beaches, then you're into kind of like just the slope up into the kind of rocky hills. And around this marina there's a fence. So he's found just outside the fence. Which is about 20 metres from the beach, and there's cafes, and there would have been people there every day, like all day, every day type thing. And the searchers over the period of past 4 days had searched that area and come down from that area where he was found today. They had actually walked down there, walked like that whole area. And it's not even, and don't get me wrong, this isn't like a national park search type thing with hundreds of people. There were dozens of people in the search, but it's, like I said, it's a tiny island and there's no trees. And they had a helicopter with kind of infrared or whatever cameras, and no sign of him for 4 full days, and then boom, he turns up just there.
Clothes, umbrella,
umbrella beside him. Yeah,
umbrella beside him.
so he had his umbrella with him all the time, so he was shielded from the sun.
Nuts. Missing 411.
Missing for sure. He was missing for 4 days, and nobody knows where he was. Like, what was he doing for 4 days? Like, where could he have gone? There's almost like nowhere you can go. It's like a tiny island. You know what I mean? You could have just been sitting there. People were searching the whole time.
No,
what do you hide?
You can't miss him.
Dig a hole and hide in it or something. So
crazy.
anyway, it's all over the BBC. Has been over the BBC past few days. You know.
There was a crazy one from Canada last month. A truck driver was going from Newfoundland all the way across Canada, I think, and he stops in Ontario. A gas station. CCTV captures him getting out of the cabin, walking down the truck, and that's the last they've seen. And a search begins, and he's still missing. So the search increases. You know, it's extensive. Ontario Police, RCMP, you name it. And he's not found. He's still missing. It's been maybe 2 weeks now. So the trucking company says, well, okay, let's send someone out to the gas station in Ontario and drive the truck back to home base. So they do that. Get the truck back to Newfoundland, open the rear of the vehicle, and his body's in the back of the truck. It had been searched. Obviously. The first thing any search, you start from there and you go out. So you extensively look at the vehicle, any signs, fingerprints, everything. He's not there, but he's in the back of it when it comes home.
How many days later?
I think it's a couple of weeks later.
Oh, weeks later. Oh, there you go. He's put back. Anyway, I have a friend who said that he glued himself to his autobiography.
Well, good for him.
Well, I don't believe him, but that's his story, and he's sticking to it.
But
anyway, on that fantastically funny note, we're going to leave it there for this week, folks. We hope you enjoyed our discussion. You have to think about that one. It was very, 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 it was deep. That was a deep one. Anyway,
do you come up with these yourself?
Yeah. It just takes me all week. Anyway, so yeah, we hope you enjoyed the discussion, and I hope you found it entertaining, useful, whatever. And thanks for commenting and watching and listening, or whatever you're doing. And don't forget to smash all the buttons. We'll be back next week with another one on whatever nonsense, like we usually say, has been going on between now and then. So until then, have a good week.
Thanks for watching. Bye all.
See ya.
Can't stop the signal now.